The rain stopped, but mud stuck to Ben Walker's boots as he walked down Main Street. The wooden boards creaked under his feet, and dim lantern light made long shadows on the puddles. It was almost midnight, but Deadwood never slept. Not the Deadwood that Ben knew. Saloons buzzed with clinking glasses and broken piano music. Brothel windows flickered with cheap candles, and on every corner, promises of ruin or fortune hung like bait on hooks. Ben pulled his old hat down over his eyes and walked into the Golden Horse Saloon. The stale smell of whiskey, cigar smoke, and desperation filled his lungs as he entered. This wasn't where respectable ranchers came for drinks. This was where washed-up gunslingers, gamblers, and hiding outlaws gathered when they ran out of good choices. The Golden Horse was crowded tonight. Cowboys covered in trail dust leaned against the bar. Miners waved their pay in the air, and gamblers with sharp eyes and smooth tongues hovered around poker tables like vultures. Ben looked around the room until he saw a familiar face. Dutch Carter hadn't changed. Same slick smile, same snake-like eyes, same fancy vest that looked out of place in this mud-stained town. Years ago, they'd shared a table and nearly killed each other over a rigged game. Tonight, fate brought them back together. "Walker," Carter called, raising his glass with fake cheer. "Heard your cattle aren't doing much better than your luck these days." Ben kept his face blank as he approached the table. "Funny, Carter. I figured you'd be in jail by now. Or a coffin." Carter laughed, the sound oily and hollow. "Deadwood's full of surprises. Want to play a game?" Ben hesitated. His pride told him to walk away. But memories of Blue Mesa Ranch, dry fields, sick cattle, and the quiet disappointment in Emma's eyes held him there. He was out of options. His savings were gone, the bank was breathing down his neck, and the thought of losing the only home they'd built together ate at his insides. "What's the buy-in?" Ben asked. Carter's grin widened. "High stakes tonight, Walker. $500 or whatever else a man might have of value." Ben's jaw tightened. "I don't have that kind of cash." "Lucky for you," Carter drawled. "There's a side wager." He snapped his fingers and one of his men dragged a figure forward from the shadows. A girl, thin, dirty, no older than 13. Her tangled dark hair framed a sharp-featured face that might have been pretty if not for the bruises and defiant scowl. But it was her eyes that froze Ben cold, calculating, too old for her years. "Wolf eyes. Straight rat from the alleys," Carter explained casually. "Owes me more than she could ever repay. So she's collateral. Win the hand, you win the girl. Lose, well, you walk out with empty pockets and more regret." Ben's stomach twisted. The thought of gambling for a child turned his gut, but pride, desperation, and memories of Blue Mesa's failing fences drowned his better judgment. The girl met his gaze, unflinching. No fear, only a flicker of something sharper, contempt, maybe pity. It unsettled him. "What's your name, kid?" Ben asked quietly. "Lily," she replied, voice rough as gravel. "Lily Bell." Carter chuckled. "She's got spirit. Might make good ranch help if you win her." Ben's fists clenched at his sides. He didn't trust Carter. Never had, never would. But walking away meant more than losing pride tonight. It meant Blue Mesa, Emma's dream, his last chance would wither to dust. "Deal the cards," Ben said. The game was 5-card draw. No wilds, no mercy. The room hushed as chips clacked onto the table. Ben's heart pounded as he eyed his hand, decent, but not unbeatable. Carter smirked, confidence oozing from every pore. The final draw came. Ben discarded 2, drew replacements. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the electric hum of desperation. "Full house. Show them," Carter ordered. Ben laid his cards down, chest tight. Carter's smirk faltered as he revealed his own hand, a straight. "Good, but not good enough." The room erupted in low murmurs. Carter's eyes darkened, dangerous and simmering. "Looks like the girl's yours," he said, voice slick with false charm. Ben stood, pocketing the meager winnings. "I didn't come for this, but I ain't leaving her here." Lily Bell stepped forward, her expression unreadable, but her eyes, those wolf eyes, gleamed with something Ben recognized. Survival. Let's go, he told her as they pushed through the saloon doors into the night. Ben couldn't shake the feeling he'd just won far more and far less than he bargained for. And somewhere in the shadows, Dutch Carter watched them go, a predator's smile curling his lips. Deadwood's full of surprises, Ben muttered. He had a feeling this was just the beginning. The wagon wheels groaned under the weight of supplies as Ben Walker guided the horses west, away from Deadwood toward the rolling hills that cradled Blue Mesa Ranch. The sky overhead was dull, leaden gray, the kind that made the land seem endless and empty. A biting wind blew down from the black hills, stirring dust and the faint copper smell of rain. Beside him sat the girl, Lily Bell. She was small, wiry, nothing but elbows and suspicion wrapped in threadbare clothes. Ben had tossed his old canvas coat around her shoulders, but it hung off her like a top on a fence post. She sat straight-backed, legs dangling above the wagon floor, arms crossed tight, eyes sharp and restless. Wolf eyes, Ben thought again. Eyes that didn't miss a thing. They'd ridden for nearly an hour without a word exchanged. "You always this quiet?" Ben finally asked, his voice low and rough from too many cigarettes and too many disappointments. Lily shrugged, never looking away from the horizon. "Depends. On what? On whether a man's worth talking to." Ben huffed out a dry laugh. "Fair enough." Silence settled again, the rhythmic clop of hooves and creak of wagon would the only sounds. They passed a patch of prairie dotted with scrub brush and the skeletons of old cattle fences. In the distance, the black silhouette of hills loomed, jagged like broken teeth. Ben adjusted his grip on the reins. "You work for Carter." Lily's eyes flicked toward him, unreadable. "I worked near him. Never for him." "Same difference." "Not to me." Her voice was steel under silk, flat, controlled, too old for her 13 years. Ben recognized the tone. He'd heard it in saloons, in back rooms of Deadwood, on the lips of men and women who'd been chewed up by the world and spat back out meaner than they went in. "You owe him money." Lily's lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I owed him my hand." Ben frowned. "Say again." "Caught me stealing bread from one of his stores. Could have taken my hand for it. Man's got a taste for lessons like that." She turned back to the trail. "Offered me a deal instead. Run messages, watch doors, count coin, stay quiet." Ben's stomach knotted. Carter always did like to make examples out of folks. And Lily, small and scrappy as she was, would have been easy prey. "You steal from him again?" Ben asked. "No. Why'd he stake you in a card game?" Lily's jaw tightened. "Because I stopped being useful. And because men like him, they like reminding folks you can always fall lower." Ben fell quiet. The wind picked up, whistling through the wagon spokes. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried. "You hungry?" he asked after a moment. Lily shrugged. "Ate yesterday." "Maybe." "Well, Emma will see you fed. She don't abide skinny folks in her house." Lily's expression flickered doubt, disbelief, maybe even the barest sliver of hope. But it vanished quick, replaced by that guarded, wolfish stare. They crested a rise, and the land opened below them. Blue Mesa Ranch sprawled across the valley, nestled beside the winding creek that gave it its name. The ranch house stood weathered but proud, its wooden frame painted white long ago, now faded and chipped. A barn leaned slightly to one side, fences sagged along the cattle pastures, and the few remaining cows grazed listlessly, their ribs showing through patchy hides. It wasn't much, but it was home. Ben reined in the horses by the porch. "This is it." Lily surveyed the place with a cool, calculating eye. "Looks half dead." "Ain't wrong," Ben admitted. "But it's ours." The front door swung open. Emma Walker appeared on the porch, arms folded across her chest, blonde hair tucked under a worn bonnet, her eyes locked onto Lily immediately. "Ben Walker. What in God's name?" "This is Lily Bell," Ben cut in, climbing down. "She's help. Help." Emma's sharp gaze didn't waver. "She's a child. Child or not, she's sharp. We could use an extra pair of hands." Ben trailed off, uncertain how to explain the poker game, the desperation, the girl's wolfish stare. Lily slipped off the wagon, landing lightly in the mud, her chin tilted up, defiant. Emma's eyes narrowed. "How old are you?" 13, Lily replied. 14 come winter. Emma studied her a moment longer, then turned back to Ben. "We'll talk later." She motioned Lily toward the house. "Come inside. You look like you've been sleeping in alleys." "Sometimes," Lily said simply. Inside, the house was warm, the air rich with the faint scent of wood smoke and old coffee. The furniture was worn but well kept, quilts draped over chairs, a chipped china set sitting neatly in a cupboard. Ben watched from the doorway as Emma set about heating soup on the stove, pulling bread from a tin. Lily hovered awkwardly by the table, her eyes never still. "You don't have to run," Emma said gently, catching the girl's wary glance toward the door. "Nobody here's going to hurt you." Lily's mouth tightened, but she nodded once. Ben leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching the two of them. He wasn't sure what exactly he'd brought home from Deadwood, but seeing the stubborn tilt of Lily's chin, the haunted glint in her eyes, and the way Emma's frown softened despite herself, he had a feeling things at Blue Mesa Ranch were about to change. And somewhere, back in the shadows of Deadwood, Ben knew Dutch Carter hadn't forgotten them. The girl with wolf eyes was his problem now, and likely his salvation or his ruin. The first few days with Lily Bell under the Walkers' roof were tense. Emma wasn't a cruel woman, but years of disappointment had left lines on her face and suspicion in her heart. She'd wanted children once, desperately. But after 13 years of marriage and a dozen miscarriages, even hope had worn thin. Now, with this hard-eyed street rat eating at their table, sleeping under their roof, Emma wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or wary. Ben felt the same, maybe worse. Lily took to the ranch work like she'd been born to it. She mucked stalls, carried water, gathered eggs, and chopped wood with the quiet efficiency of someone used to surviving, not thriving. She never complained, never wasted words, and never seemed fully at ease. But there were moments, small cracks in the armor, when Ben caught a glimpse of the child beneath the sharp edges. Like the way her eyes lit up when she watched the horses run in the pasture, or the way her fingers lingered a moment too long on the warm fur of a barn cat. She didn't trust easily, hell, maybe not at all, but Ben could tell she was watching, waiting, measuring. It reminded him of himself. One morning, Ben found Lily perched on the split-rail fence, eyes scanning the hills like a soldier on watch. "Storm's moving in," Ben remarked, tipping his hat back as he approached. "Smells like rain," Lily replied, still staring at the horizon. Ben leaned beside her. "You keep watch like that all the time?" Lily shrugged. "Old habit. From Carter, from life." Ben studied her for a moment, noting the dirt smudges on her cheeks, the thin wrists poking out from rolled sleeves. For all her bravado, she still looked breakable. "You sleeping all right?" he asked. Lily shrugged again, non-committal. "Look, I know this ain't exactly a grand welcome wagon," Ben offered. "But Emma's got a soft heart. It's just been bruised some." "I ain't looking for sympathy," Lily cut in. "You paid for me. I work." Ben's jaw clenched at the reminder, the damn card game, Carter's smug face, the way Lily's eyes had met his across that smoky saloon. He hadn't bought her. Not really. But the line between rescuing and claiming blurred awful quick in Deadwood. "You ain't property," Ben said firmly. "You're here because I figured you deserved better than what Carter had planned." Lily's gaze softened, just barely. "You always gamble for strays." "First time," Ben admitted. "Might be my dumbest bet yet." A ghost of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. 3 weeks passed. Life on Blue Mesa Ranch settled into a fragile rhythm. Lily Bell worked hard, harder than Ben expected for a girl her age. She rose before dawn, helped muck the barn, hauled water, even learned to saddle a horse under Ben's sharp instruction. Emma, wary at first, thawed in her quiet way, teaching Lily to bake cornbread, mend clothes, and scrub floors till they shone like polished oak. But beneath the small victories, unease lingered like smoke after gunfire. It started with tracks. Ben found them one morning down by the creek, horse prints, fresh, too fresh for any of their ranch hands. And there hadn't been any neighbors riding through, not this far off the main trail. At first, he tried to tell himself it was nothing. Maybe a stray cowboy looking for lost cattle, maybe a hunter. But the feeling in his gut, the same one that kept him alive through saloon brawls and card game betrayals, said otherwise. The second sign came 2 days later. Lily was tending the vegetable patch near the porch when she paused, eyes narrowing toward the eastern hills. Ben, fixing the corral fence, noticed the change in her posture, the stiffness, the way her hand drifted toward the pocket knife on her belt. "You see something?" Ben called. Lily didn't answer right away. Her gaze remained fixed on the ridge for a long moment before she finally shook her head. "Nothing. Just thought I saw a glint, like sunlight off glass." Ben's blood went cold. A spyglass. That night he sat at the kitchen table with Emma and Lily, laying it all out plain. Tracks near the creek, signs of someone scouting the ranch, Ben explained, fingers tapping the rim of his coffee cup. "And if someone's watching, they ain't neighbors." Emma's face paled. "Carter." Lily shifted uncomfortably in her chair, but didn't speak. Ben's gaze settled on her. "If you know something, now's the time to talk." For the first time since she'd arrived, Lily's composure cracked. She fiddled with the frayed edge of her sleeve, eyes darting toward the window as if expecting shadows to materialize. I wasn't just a runner for Carter," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I handled things." "Handled what?" Ben pressed. Lily exhaled slowly, the weight of her past pressing down like a storm cloud. "His books, his ledgers. I kept track of who owed him what, where the money went, even who the law looked the other way for." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. You were his accountant." Lily's lips curled with bitter amusement. "Don't need to be grown to count crooked money, Ben leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "You steal something from him before you left." Lily hesitated, then reached into her boot, pulling out a small leather-bound ledger. Its edges were frayed, the binding loose. But Ben recognized it for what it was: evidence. "Ain't just numbers in here," Lily explained, placing the ledger on the table. "Names, dates, payoffs. Town marshals, judges, maybe even a few Pinkertons." Emma covered her mouth with her hand, horrified. Ben's mind raced. "You planned on using this?" "What, to bargain for your life?" Lily nodded. "If Carter came after me, figured I'd trade it for my skin. But now..." Her eyes darkened, scanning the familiar walls of the Walker home. Now his coming here. The first shot woke him. Ben Walker was out of bed before his boots hit the floor, reaching for the Winchester propped against the nightstand. Across the room, Emma bolted upright, eyes wide with fear. A second shot cracked through the pre-dawn gloom, followed by the distant thunder of hooves. "Stay with Lily," Ben ordered, already pulling on his shirt and grabbing his belt. Emma's face was pale but determined. "Be careful." Ben slipped out the door, rifle in hand, moving down the stairs as another shot echoed off the hills. Outside, the faintest hint of morning light brushed the horizon, casting the ranch in eerie blue shadows. By the time he reached the porch, Lily was already there. She stood barefoot in the cold dirt, her small frame tense, eyes locked on the eastern ridge where dust rose like smoke. A rifle rested in her hands, one of Ben's older Henry repeaters, but her grip was steady, her stance low and ready. "They're here," she said simply. Ben followed her gaze. 6 riders emerged from the hills, silhouettes against the growing dawn. Wide-brimmed hats, rifles slung across saddles, the casual menace of men who didn't need to rush. They knew they had the upper hand. At their head rode a man Ben recognized instantly, even from a distance. Bart Stevens, Carter's lapdog, mean as a rattlesnake and twice as dumb, but dangerous all the same. "Stay low," Ben told Lily. "And keep your head." "I ain't running," she replied, fierce. Ben's stomach twisted with both pride and fear. The kid had backbone, no question. But backbone didn't stop bullets. The riders slowed as they reached the front gate, their horses snorting and stamping. Bart Stevens lifted a hand, signaling his men to halt. "Walker," he called, voice rough as gravel. "We come for the girl. Hand her over, and nobody's got to bleed." Ben stepped off the porch, rifle resting casually at his side. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed calm. "Name's Walker," he corrected. "And you picked the wrong ranch to trespass on." Bart chuckled. Don't matter your name. You got something belongs to Mr. Carter. We aim to take it back. Behind Ben, the front door creaked as Emma peeked out, a shotgun cradled in her arms. Lily remained at the porch rail, eyes sharp, fingers tight on her rifle. What Carter wants, Ben said evenly, ain't on offer. Bart's grin widened, yellow teeth flashing. Shame. Was hoping this would be easy. Without warning, Bart's hand dropped to his belt. Ben raised the Winchester in one smooth motion. The first shot slammed into the dirt near his feet. Lily's rifle cracked in response, splintering the fence post beside Bart's horse, sending the animal rearing. The raiders scattered, gunfire erupting like a summer hailstorm. Ben dove behind the water trough, bullets chewing into the porch rail. From the loft window, a shotgun blast rang out. Emma. Lily kept low, returning fire with steady aim that made Ben marvel. Ben's blood ran cold as he saw one of the riders toss a bottle, a rag stuffed in its neck, flame licking the top. A Molotov. Lily. Inside. Ben shouted. But before the bottle could fly, the crack of a distant rifle split the air. The rider's hand exploded in a spray of red. The bottle dropped harmlessly, flames sputtering in the dirt. Ben's head snapped toward the hilltop. Pete Harrison, the old ranch hand, trusted as Ben's own brother, stood silhouetted against the ridge, his rifle steady. Beside him, 3 more men appeared, neighboring ranchers, friends, maybe more than Ben deserved. Relief flooded Ben's chest. Bart saw them too. Damn it, Bart cursed, yanking his horse around. We ain't done, Walker. The remaining raiders wheeled their mounts, disappearing back into the hills. For a long moment, silence returned to Blue Mesa. Smoke drifted from the porch rail, bullet holes pocked the barn siding, and the faint tang of gunpowder clung to the air. Ben lowered his rifle, shoulders tight with exhaustion. Lily appeared at his side, face pale but steady. They'll be back, she said simply. Ben nodded. Yeah. But so will we. The morning after the raid, the sun rose slow and crimson over Blue Mesa, casting long shadows across the battered ranch. Smoke still curled from the splintered porch rail, and fresh hoof prints marked the muddy ground like scars. Ben Walker stood at the fence line, arms crossed, jaw tight. Pete Harrison leaned beside him, reloading his rifle. The old ranch hand had more gray in his beard these days, but his eyes stayed sharp as ever. Carter ain't done, Pete remarked, breaking the silence. No, Ben agreed. He sent Stevens first. Next time it'll be worse. Pete spat into the dirt. You got a plan? Ben didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to the porch where Lily Bell sat mending a torn sleeve, her face unreadable. Emma fussed over the bullet holes in the siding, muttering under her breath. Ben's gut twisted. He couldn't outrun Carter. Couldn't hide Lily forever. But maybe, just maybe, he could outplay him. That evening, as the stars bled across the Dakota sky, Ben called Lily into the kitchen. The lantern light flickered across the worn wood table, casting shadows like ghosts. I'm going to town, Ben said simply. Lily's eyes narrowed. Deadwood? Ben nodded. You got that little book still? Lily reached into her boot, pulling the leather-bound ledger free. You going to trade it? Not exactly. Ben slid the book into his coat pocket. I'm making a deal. Lily's expression darkened with suspicion. With Carter. With the devil himself, Ben confirmed. But on my terms. Emma, standing by the stove, set down her dish rag. Ben. He held up a hand. I ain't handing him the girl, but we need this to end, Emma. One way or another. An hour later, under the cover of darkness, Ben saddled his horse and rode into the hills. The trip to Deadwood was quiet. The only sounds the distant howl of coyotes and the steady rhythm of hooves on dry earth. The Golden Horse Saloon was as grimy and crowded as ever. Smoke thickened the air, poker chips clattered across tables, and the sour stench of whiskey and sweat clung to every surface. Ben stepped inside, hat low, eyes scanning. Carter sat at his usual corner table, flanked by hired guns and painted women. His grin stretched wide when he saw Ben. Well. Walker returns. Thought you'd be buried on that ranch by now. Ben approached slowly, careful to keep his expression neutral. "I ain't here to trade shots," Ben said. "I'm here to trade terms." Carter chuckled, swirling his whiskey. "What makes you think you got any?" Ben pulled the ledger from his coat, setting it on the table with a soft thud. Carter's eyes narrowed, his easy grin faltering. "Ledger's got names," Ben explained. "Dates, amounts, payoffs. Enough to burn you clean off the map, far as the Pinkertons and circuit judges are concerned." Carter's smile returned, colder this time. "You'd be dead before that book left town." "Maybe," Ben allowed. "But copies travel faster than bullets." A tense beat passed. Finally, Carter leaned back, eyes gleaming with calculation. "What do you want?" "You call off your dogs," Ben said. "Leave me, my wife, and the girl be. You tell your boys Lilybell's dead, buried under 6 feet of Dakota clay. And you never so much as breathe our names again." Carter tapped the rim of his glass, considering. "And in return?" Ben pushed the ledger toward him. "You get your book. No copies, no threats. You keep your empire. I keep my family." The saloon held its breath. Finally, Carter snatched the ledger, thumbing through its pages. His jaw tightened at the names, the details, the evidence that could ruin him. "You always were a gambling man, Walker," Carter mused. "Dangerous game you're playing." Ben shrugged. "Ain't much of a life without risk." Another long pause. Then Carter snapped the ledger shut, sliding it into his coat. "Done." Ben nodded, though the knot in his stomach didn't ease. Deals with devils never came clean. As Ben turned to leave, Carter called after him. "You ever cross me again, Walker? Ledger or no ledger, I'll burn that ranch to the ground with you in it." Ben didn't flinch. "You ever ride near my land again, Carter, you won't ride back." With that, Ben strode from the Golden Horse, mounting his horse beneath the cold, watchful moon. The deal was struck. The girl was safe, for now. But as the shadows of Deadwood faded behind him, Ben knew better than to believe devils kept their word for long. It rained the night Ben returned from Deadwood. A slow, steady drizzle fell over Blue Mesa Ranch, soaking the dry ground, filling the air with the scent of wet earth and sagebrush. It was the kind of rain ranchers prayed for, but Ben couldn't enjoy it. Not tonight. Emma met him on the porch, arms folded, eyes sharp with questions. Lily lingered in the doorway behind her, small frame barely lit by the flickering lamp inside. Ben dismounted, mud clinging to his boots as he approached. "Well?" Emma asked. Ben nodded once. "It's done." Emma's jaw tightened. "You made the deal." Ben met her gaze. "I gave him the ledger. He promised to leave us be. Told him Lily was dead." Lily's eyes flickered with something Ben couldn't quite name: relief, anger, fear. "Maybe all three." "And you believe him?" Emma pressed. Ben hesitated, then shook his head. "I believe he'll let this cool down for now, long enough for us to breathe. But men like Carter, they don't forget. They don't forgive." Emma's face softened with quiet resolve. "Then we make sure we're ready." The following weeks passed without incident. No riders appeared on the ridge. No strange tracks by the creek. It was as if the storm had finally broken and left Blue Mesa in peace. But the ranch had changed, and so had its people. Lily Bell worked harder than ever. She rose before dawn, her small hands blistered from fence repair, her boots caked in mud from tending cattle. Ben taught her how to rope, how to ride properly, how to patch saddles and mend bridles. At night, Emma taught her to read and write better, poring over dog-eared books by lantern light. The girl soaked it all up like dry soil after rain. But beneath her quiet focus, Ben sensed a storm brewing, one that had nothing to do with Carter. It came to a head one warm evening as the sun bled orange across the hills. Lily and Ben were in the barn, oiling tack and stacking feed. "Mr. Walker," Lily said suddenly, breaking the silence. Ben looked up from the saddle he was repairing. "Yeah. Why'd you really gamble for me?" Her voice was steady, but there was an edge beneath it, like she'd been holding the question in her gut for weeks. Ben set down the saddle, wiping his hands on a rag. He considered lying, saying it was pity or duty or desperation. But the truth was harder, sharper. I saw something in your eyes, Ben admitted. I've been around long enough to recognize it. Fight, anger, but something more. Something stubborn. You reminded me of me, I guess. And I knew if Carter kept you, he'd grind that out of you. Lily's jaw clenched. So you bought me to save me. Ben shook his head. I bought you to give you a choice. Nobody owns you here. Lily's eyes shimmered with something like uncertainty or maybe belief for the first time. But I ain't just here for charity, she pressed. Ben chuckled softly. No. You earn your keep and then some. Lily's gaze drifted over the barn, the fields beyond, the cattle moving slow and steady in the twilight. Her expression shifted, resolve settling over her like armor. Mr. Walker, she said, voice quiet but firm. I want to stay. Not as charity, not as a hired hand. Ben's brows furrowed. What are you saying? Lily took a deep breath, fists balled at her sides. I want to be part of this, for real. Your family, your legacy. I want to learn how to run this ranch, not just mend fences or shovel stalls. The real work, the money, the land, the decisions. Ben's throat tightened. He hadn't expected this. Not so soon. But looking at her thin arms, wolf eyes, stubborn chin, he saw not a street rat or a burden, but a survivor, a fighter, someone meant for more than alleyways and backroom deals. You sure? He asked quietly. It ain't easy. Ain't always fair. But it's real. Lily nodded, her jaw set with determination. I'm sure. I ain't got blood family left, but I can choose one. Ben exhaled slowly, the weight of years settling into his bones. Then it's settled, he said. We'll make it official. You're a Walker now. A faint smile broke across Lily's face, small, weary, but real. That night around the supper table, Ben and Emma laid it all out. The adoption, the expectations, the responsibilities. Emma's eyes shone with quiet tears as she took Lily's hand. You're not just a stray we took in, Emma promised. You're ours. Blood or no blood. For the first time, Lily Bell didn't flinch from kindness. And under that rain-washed Dakota sky, Blue Mesa Ranch gained more than another set of working hands. It gained family. It gained hope. It gained a fighter who would defend it with blood, sweat, and maybe, just maybe, with love. 5 years passed like a prairie storm, fast, fierce, and full of change. By the spring of 1890, Blue Mesa Ranch looked nothing like the struggling patch of dirt Ben Walker once feared he'd lose. The fields were green, the cattle fat and healthy, the barns repaired and expanded. But the real transformation wasn't measured in livestock or land. It was in the children. The first arrived on a cold autumn morning, a boy no older than 10, barefoot and rail-thin, clutching a sack of stale bread. His name was Tommy, and he'd run from the mines outside Deadwood after his father was killed in a cave-in. Ben found him sleeping in the loft, ready to drag the boy to town until Lily stopped him. His me, she had said simply, 5 years ago. So they kept Tommy. Then came Ruth, a wiry girl with bruises hidden under her dress and eyes sharp as broken glass. Then Henry, who couldn't